In one of our findings, we discovered a direct relationship in China where the government influences the media coverage on the disputes, and a less visible vice versa relationship in Japan, in which Japanese media tends to influence the government. In quick summary, this is so because Chinese media is under stringent management, which results in these agencies becoming mouthpieces for the government. However, in Japan, because of choice access to information and diversified agencies, media has been free to both praise and criticize the government. To illustrate these relationships, we will first compare Chinese and Japanese articles on the 2010 trawler collision incident. In 2010, a Chinese trawling ship collided into a Japanese vessel in the disputed waters. This resulted in the Japanese government arresting the trawler captain. From the initiation of the conflict, Xinhua news agencies did not acknowledge that the collision was the trawler's fault, but rather included a mini historical lesson at the end of the article, claiming that Japan only began questioning ownership during the Sino-Japanese War, indicating past imperialism.
Analyzing the approach of Chinese media, we look at the official party newspaper, People's Daily. During the 2012 crisis, we found recurring themes and rhetoric in news articles published by People's Daily. For example, in this article titled Foreign Ministry Press Conference on the Issue of Diaoyu Island, published in October 2012, the editor used very emotionally charged language, such as the Chinese people around the world are insulted by Japanese actions. In the same article, we also see very imperative language condemning Japanese actions, such as the Deputy Foreign Minister urges Japan to see the situation clearly, stop dreaming, face the reality, and correct its mistakes. When justifying Chinese claims over the island, People's Daily often refers to the Diaoyu Island as being a part of China since ancient times. The phrase "since ancient times" is critical here because its ambiguity creates a sense of assertiveness, but the time frame that counts as ancient is actually subjected to official state interpretation. This article titled Diaoyu Island belongs to China since ancient times claims that, according to historical records and documents from the National Library Archive, the Chinese people first discovered the Diaoyu Island at least by the 15th century. We found that Chinese media almost always relies on historical maps, documents, and records from the 16th century to the 18th century when it tries to provide evidence to support Chinese claims over the islands.
While there exists an almost unanimous view of the incident in Chinese media, we see Japanese news agencies projecting a mix of support and criticism of the ruling Democratic Party of Japan for handling the incident. Kyodo International News first sided with the government by claiming the trawler deliberately hit a Japanese patrol boat and not the other way around as the Chinese media was reporting. However, as the incident progressed, Japanese news agencies began to criticize the government's actions. Agencies withdrew support when the administration failed to follow through with a criminal trial for the arrested captain. Yomiuri Shimbun claimed that the Japanese government seemed ambivalent and lacking leadership when deciding whether to release the prisoner. Thus, by releasing the captain, the government appeared subservient to China. Nonetheless, the relationship between the Japanese media and the government should not be viewed as being stagnant but more dynamic. When Prime Minister Noda repatriated Hong Kong activists who had landed on the island, Yomiuri Shimbun, the same agency that criticized the government, applauded the DPJ for rejecting the previous weak-kneed policies and embracing a more aggressive stance against China. They claimed that the DPJ had learned their lesson from past backlash with the 2010 collision incident. Rather than the Japanese government influencing its own media's coverage on the islands, the media tends to have a stronger influence on the government by choice of applauding or criticizing it. Relating back to the main thesis, our findings have also reinforced the claim that Japanese media tends to portray the Japanese government as rational and the Japanese government as irrational and emotional. The media outlet consistently reported anti-Japanese protests in China and claimed that the Chinese government was complicit with the destruction they were causing in Japanese factories. Yomiuri Shimbun claimed that the Chinese government deliberately tolerated the protests after the arrest of the captain, noting that it took about 2 hours before Chinese authorities started to dissolve the protests. News agency also reported how China was canceling all diplomatic events and banquets with Japan in response to the attempted purchase of the islands. These articles portray a wider characterization of Japanese media, one that frames Japan as a rational and mature government in conflict with an irrational, arrogant China.
The Korean media is actively engaged in promoting the Takeshima Dokdo Island dispute. As seen by the PR video published by Korea's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which garnered 2.2 million views, the justifications over South Korea's sovereignty to the land to which they attach the name Beautiful Island are largely derived from a list of historical documents and maps dating from as early as the 12th century.
Numerous historical Korean maps and documents, including the Chronicles of the Three Kingdoms, published in 1145, record Dokdo as Korean territory since ancient times.
The more historical and sentimental approach of the Korean Ministry of Foreign Affairs video can be contrasted to Japan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs PR video, titled Seeking a Solution Based on Law and Dialogue, which frames the issue based on the more technical legalities of international law.
Japan has proposed on 3 occasions referring this case to the International Court of Justice, but the Republic of Korea has rejected all such proposals.
A study conducted regarding heightened tensions following South Korea's construction of docking facilities in 1996 shows that when observing the articles published, Korean news stories fell under all the categories: straight news, editorial columns, background news, and letters to the editor, while Japanese newspapers consistently provided a majority of simply straight news. In fact, when going through the archive of the Chosun Ilbo, which published the most news stories about the dispute than other news agencies, we find several articles about the Takeshima Dokdo Island dispute on a single day. One, for example, about the release of a Dokdo Is Our Land remake by a popular group, and another about the installation of TV channels for South Korean guards occupying the island.
When comparing interviews on the streets of both South Korea and Japan, it becomes apparent that most of the younger Japanese people hold very little interest or concern about the dispute.
なんか分かるようなものと分かんないような。
時にどんなことが起きたかとかそこまでは特に
深くは
やっていない。
どれだけ知ってるのか聞かれたらほとんど知らないと思うんで、はい、全く分かってないって言ってもいいんじゃないかな。
それほど気になってないです。
Some often stating that they believe the dispute has nothing to do with their daily lives.
正直日常生活の中でどっちのものでも。
And some expressing their distrust of their own media.
全然思いますね。なんかちょっと都合いいことばっかり言ってんのかなとたまに思います。
それは思う。
Meanwhile, in Korea, it is not uncommon for South Koreans to draw a connection between the dispute and the history of Japanese imperialism. This woman mentioning the Takeshima Dokdo dispute even without being asked about it.
지금 그 위안부 문제나 독도 문제 한참 그걸로 좋은 편은 아니라고.
To furthermore observe the Takeshima Dokdo dispute independently of the Japanese government, we turn to the Asahi Shimbun, which is known to be critical of the government. In the recent March 1st Independence Day speech, South Korean President Moon made multiple statements referencing sensitive issues about South Korea's history with Japan.
전쟁 시기에 있었던 반인륜적 인권 범죄 행위는 끝났다는 말로 덮어지지 않습니다. 일본은 인류 보편의 양심으로 역사의 진실과 정의를 마주할 수 있어야 합니다.
The Asahi Shimbun subsequently published an editorial titled Moon Lashes Out at Japan in a way that seemingly downplays South Korea's reaction as being overly emotional, calling his words harsh, and stating it is rare for a South Korean president to emphasize that aspect in a formal speech.
All in all, our findings confirm the key role of nationalism in each country's historical narrative, but most importantly highlight the pervasive role of nationalism in their media outlets, especially in regards to the island disputes. The media continues to amplify the animosity between the countries and serves as a barrier to breaking the deadlocks of the Senkaku Diaoyu and Takeshima Dokdo disagreements.